My wife and I have been together for 8 years, married for 6. She has a daughter, 24, and 2 younger kids from a previous relationship. I have a son, 22, from a previous relationship. I am not big on weddings. I consider them a waste of money. My wife and I got married at the courthouse. My son is getting married this summer and has decided he wants a wedding. Over the years, I saved a substantial amount of money for him to use for college or whatever he chose to do after high school. However, he received a scholarship and didn't need that money. I am splitting the cost of the wedding with his fiancé's parents, with my share coming from the money I had saved. My stepdaughter recently got engaged. Her fiancé's family is traditional and expects her family to pay for the entire wedding. My wife asked me how much we were willing to contribute. Note, my wife and I maintain separate finances. I told her that aside from the $2,000 or so I plan to spend on wedding gifts, I do not intend to contribute anything. She told me she cannot afford the cost of the wedding on her own, especially considering that she is solely responsible for saving for the younger kids' college, as her ex refuses to contribute anything beyond child support until they turn 18. I suggested that they could get married at the courthouse like we did, which would cost less than $100. She then said I could use some of the money I had set aside for my son. While that money is technically mine, as far as I'm concerned, it belongs to my son. My wife is upset because she sees it as fundamentally unfair that my son is getting a nice wedding while her daughter is not. While I understand her frustration, I do not believe it is my responsibility to solve the problem. College, second year, transfer blues, you know, new city, new faces, new everything. Especially after losing Mum. A year still feels like yesterday, a raw ache in my chest, and with that came the household. Cooking, cleaning, the whole 9 yards. Someone had to. Sis, bless her, was drowning in nursing school. Those long, grueling shifts and endless sleep-depriving study sessions. Little Sis, still figuring out which way was up, more comfortable with a phone screen than a frying pan. Bless her heart. And cousin, well, he could boil water, and that was about it. A good heart, but not exactly a domestic wizard, more likely to set off the smoke alarm than create a culinary masterpiece. Before I left for this semester, I turned that house into a sanctuary. Polished floors that gleamed under the soft light, a fridge stocked with fresh produce and meal-prepped containers, carefully portioned and labelled, like I was running a Michelin star kitchen on a student budget. I carefully labelled each container, visualising the meals they could have, the ease of simply reheating and enjoying. I thought, they'll get it now. They'll keep it up. They'll finally understand the effort it takes, the thought behind it all. First weekend back, disaster zone. Shoes scattered like landmines, a chaotic obstacle course in the hallway, dishes stacked in the sink like the Leaning Tower of Pisa, threatening to topple over with a clatter, takeout containers turning into biohazards, emitting that sickly sweet rotting smell that clung to the air. My meticulously prepared veggies, withered and abandoned, a testament to their neglect, a silent accusation. Frustration boiled over, a hot, angry wave that threatened to consume me, but I cleaned. Again. I scrubbed, I wiped, I organised, forcing down the resentment that bubbled within me. I tried the gentle reminder, the clean environment, healthy living speech, the one I'd crafted with care, hoping they'd finally listen. You know, the one I wished I'd given myself more often when Mum was still here, when her health was slowly slipping away, when I was too busy with my own life to notice the subtle signs. The next weekend? Déjà vu. The same mess, the same disregard, the same feeling of being utterly unseen. And the one after that? I was done. Completely and utterly done. Home wasn't a refuge, it was a second job, a thankless one after a week of lectures and exams, of trying to keep my own life afloat. So, I just stopped going. I packed a small bag for the weekend, just the essentials, and stayed at school, finding solace in the quiet solitude of my dorm room. Excuses became my best friends, my arsenal against the guilt and disappointment. Group project, study session, unexpected library hours, alien abduction, I joked to myself, finding a dark humour in the situation. Anything to avoid the mess, the disappointment, the feeling of being taken for granted, of being the invisible caretaker. Then came semester break. Big religious holiday, family coming over, the house filled with the smell of familiar spices, the echoes of laughter, the usual drill, me running around like a headless chicken, making sure everything was perfect, anticipating every need, smoothing over every potential conflict. This time, sorry, papers to finish, really important deadlines. Professors are ruthless this semester. Truth, I wanted to see them sink or swim, to experience the chaos they were so accustomed to creating, to understand the weight of responsibility. Group chat blew up, notifications pinging non-stop, a digital cacophony of panic. Panic mode. Where's the good plates, the ones with the blue flowers? How much chicken do we need? I can't find the recipe. Mum always knew. The table's a mess, no room to cook. It's buried under papers and junk. We can't even find the salt. I watched, a strange sense of satisfaction washing over me, a vindication I hadn't expected, a quiet triumph. They were finally feeling the weight of it all, the stress, the disorganization, the sheer effort it took to keep things running, to maintain a semblance of normalcy. I rolled in the day after the holiday. Visit to Mum's grave first, of course, to lay flowers and share a quiet moment, to feel her presence amidst the silence. "Oh, how convenient," they said with that sarcastic edge, that undercurrent of resentment, that subtle accusation. But the house, cleaner, not spotless, not perfect, but livable. Progress, however small, was progress, a sign that perhaps, just perhaps, they were starting to understand. They'll likely revert to old habits, the chaos, but maybe, just maybe, they'll remember doing it themselves, without me picking up the pieces. Maybe they'll appreciate the effort, understand home is shared, built on respect, and maybe they'll learn to create a true sanctuary, a place of peace. 10 years. 10 years of marriage, 2 kids, a life built together. Last week, my wife, Sarah, asked if she could go out for her co-worker's birthday on Saturday. "Of course," I said, no hesitation. It was a rare night out for her, and she deserved it. We settled into our usual Saturday night routine, movie marathon with the kids, a flurry of video game controllers, and the inevitable pizza delivery. A comfortable, familiar rhythm. She came home late, really late, and definitely drunk. As I helped her navigate the hallway and get ready for bed, she started rambling, a bubbly, slightly slurred monologue about her night. "There was this guy," she said, a mischievous glint in her eyes, "this 25-year-old, and he was flirting with me, and I was flirting back. You should have seen him. He was practically drooling." She went on, bragging about how she still got it, how she could still turn heads. I laughed, a genuine amused chuckle. "Okay, drunk lady. Go to bed. You had a good time. That's what matters." The next morning, over coffee, she recounted the story, this time with more detail. "He was really persistent," she said, a hint of something I couldn't quite place in her voice. "He even asked if I wanted to go back to his place. I almost did." Almost? That caught my attention, but I still laughed it off. "You almost did?" I said, trying to keep it light. "Well, you came home, didn't you?" That's when things shifted. She got quiet, her smile fading. "Why aren't you jealous?" she asked, her voice tight. "Don't you care? Do you think I'm too ugly or old to find anyone?" I was taken aback. "No, of course not. You're gorgeous, Sarah. You could have anyone you want. I just know you. You're loyal. You're not a cheater. You came home to me. Did she need me to be possessive, to show some kind of insecurity? I'm not the jealous type, never have been. I trust her. I know her. Or at least I thought I did. Now I'm questioning everything. Maybe I'm too complacent. Maybe I've taken her for granted. Maybe I've mistaken her loyalty for a lack of desire. Maybe she needed me to fight for her, to show her that I valued her, that I was afraid of losing her. Instead, I just laughed it off. I thought I was being understanding, trusting, secure, but maybe I was just being an idiot. Maybe I was so confident in our relationship that I didn't see the insecurity lurking beneath the surface. Maybe she needed me to be a little less logical, a little more emotional. Maybe she needed me to be a little more human. Now I'm left with this coldness, this distance, and I don't know how to bridge the gap. I don't know how to fix what I broke, and I'm starting to wonder if I'm the arsehole, if I'm the one who messed everything up. When I was 5, my mum married my stepdad. He was a widower, his first wife having passed a few years prior, leaving behind my step-siblings, 8, 10, and 11 years old when they became a part of my life. For the first year, things were manageable. They'd visit their maternal grandparents a couple of times a year, a week here, a week there, longer stretches in the summer. It was their family, their time. Then, things changed. My stepdad, perhaps out of guilt, perhaps out of a desire to keep his children close, decided they shouldn't travel alone. So, my parents made a decision. We'd all go. Road trips, they called them. To me, they were weeks of forced isolation. We'd follow them to their grandparents' town, staying for as long as they did. They'd stay with their grandparents, surrounded by aunts, uncles, cousins, a whole network of love and support. And we'd stay in these places, cheap motels, tiny apartments, the kind of places where the wallpaper peeled and the air smelled faintly of stale smoke. And we did nothing, absolutely nothing, except my stepdad, who'd find a cafe with Wi-Fi and work from his laptop. My mum would read, sometimes try to engage me, but the unspoken truth hung heavy in the air. We were waiting for them to finish their visit, waiting to drive them back home. The few times we saw them, it was like stepping into a different world. They were spoiled, showered with gifts, surrounded by laughter. It wasn't just the things they got, it was the attention, the pure, unadulterated joy on their faces. It was obvious they were loved, cherished, and I was the outsider, the tag-along, the kid left on the sidelines. What bothered me most, now that I'm older, was the sheer pointlessness of it all. We barely saw them. They were in their own world, their own bubble, and we were just there. To me, it felt like rubbing salt in the wound, a constant reminder that they had this loving, extended family, this world of fun and adventure, while I was stuck in a dreary room, waiting for time to pass. At first, it was just a twinge of jealousy, a little resentment when they came back with new toys, extra birthday gifts, a mountain of Christmas presents. But as the years went on, as I spent more and more weeks in those awful places, doing absolutely nothing while they had the time of their lives, the resentment grew. It festered, turning into a bitter, gnawing ache. My stepdad, bless his heart, did try. He'd ask occasionally if I could join them. Could I come to the park, to the lake, to whatever outing they had planned? And every time the answer was a resounding, unwavering no. "It's family time," their grandparents would say, their voices cold and dismissive. He never asked privately either. I'd hear the rejection, loud and clear, adding a layer of humiliation to the hurt. It got even more awkward when we'd all go to a barbecue or lunch at their grandparents' house. The tension was palpable. The way they looked at my mom, at me. It was clear we weren't wanted. I'd watch the other kids play, their laughter echoing, while I sat alone, ignored, save for the occasional strained conversation with my parents. My mum would make excuses, try to explain, tell me it wouldn't last forever. But forever felt like it was happening then. When I got older, I started pushing back. I questioned the weeks of my life wasted, the summers lost. My mum claimed I was exaggerating, that I was making it all up. But she could never give me a single instance where I had the fun, where I was included. I had no extended family of my own. My dad bailed before I was born, and his family wanted nothing to do with me. We weren't wealthy, so summer camps and extracurricular activities were out of the question. Maybe we could have afforded them if we weren't spending money on those awful motels, those pointless trips. I thought it would end when my step-siblings moved out, but even after the youngest left, we still followed them. It's only been 2 years since we stopped, but the other day my parents were talking about doing it again, and I just snapped. I told them I wouldn't go. I wouldn't waste another second of my life on their guilt trips. We argued. They told me my resentment was unfair, that I needed to let it go, that I had no good reason to be angry. I told them they had no idea what it was like to be a kid, dragged to a place where you're not wanted, forced to sit and do nothing while everyone else has fun. I told them they had no right to tell me how to feel. They said, "We do things for family." I told them that was bullshit. That family doesn't mean sacrificing one child's happiness for another's. That family means everyone gets a chance to feel loved, included, valued, and that they failed me. I'm 28, a mum of 2, a spirited 7-year-old and a whirlwind 3-year-old. My husband, 30, and I are working our tails off. 2 full-time jobs, a mountain of bills, the constant push and pull of trying to save for the future while making sure our kids don't miss out on anything. It's a tightrope walk, financially, and some days it feels like we're barely hanging on. But we're doing it. Slowly, painstakingly, we're building a life for our family. Then the phone rang. My brother, mid-20s, his voice tight with desperation. He needs $4,500 for rent. He's behind, facing eviction. He's been struggling for years, a cycle of poor spending habits and last-minute pleas for help. This time he said his life would fall apart if I didn't step in. I told him no. It wasn't easy, but it was firm. We simply don't have that kind of money lying around. We're stretched thin as it is. And honestly, I'm tired of bailing him out. It's a pattern, a never-ending cycle, and it's not helping him in the long run. A few hours later, my mum called. And she didn't just call. She unleashed a torrent of guilt and accusations. "Selfish," she called me. "Family comes first." She painted a picture of me abandoning my brother in his hour of need, told me I could always rebuild my savings later. She even pulled the think of the children card, saying I wasn't setting a good example of what family should be. She twisted the knife, accused me of choosing my own family over him, said I needed to grow up and be there for my brother. Now she's not talking to me, but she's talking about me, to anyone who'll listen, it seems. Heartless, unsupportive, the words echo in my head. Other relatives are calling, repeating her accusations, adding their own judgments. My husband is a rock. He's completely on my side, reminding me that I'm not responsible for my brother's choices, that I have a right to protect my own family. But the guilt, it's a living thing, a constant gnawing in my stomach. It whispers doubts in my ear, makes me question every decision. I replay the conversation with my brother. I remember the look on his face when I said no, the way his voice broke. I think of my mum's words, her voice dripping with disappointment, the way she made me feel like the worst daughter in the world. I know, logically, that I made the right decision. I know I have a responsibility to my husband and children, to their future. But the emotional weight of it all is crushing. Am I really being selfish? Am I failing as a sister, as a daughter? It's not that I don't want to help. It's that I can't. Not like this. Not by enabling a cycle that's only hurting him more. I want him to learn, to grow, to take responsibility for his own life. But how do you explain that to someone who's convinced you're abandoning them? How do you explain it to a mother who sees only her son's pain, not the years of enabling that led to it? How do you explain that sometimes love means saying no? That sometimes family means setting boundaries? I'm torn between the guilt of saying no and the fear of repeating the same patterns. I'm caught between the responsibility I feel for my brother and the responsibility I have to my own children. And I don't know how to reconcile those feelings. I just wanted to vent, to get it out, to share the burden, even if just for a moment, to know that maybe, just maybe, I'm not alone in feeling this way, that maybe, just maybe, I'm not the villain in this story.